Hello, and welcome to Star Trek Rewind, your weekly visit to the future in the past. This is the Pyroceniac, and with me today I have...
It's me, it's Captain Fruit, and
me, Ninja Nerd, here as well.
Beautiful.
And today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 3, The Naked Now. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy. A little preface here, I'm going to be completely honest. There are some technological difficulties, and we are having to re-record this episode a couple weeks after we have watched it, so just keep in mind this is not the first time we have done this, so we'll see how it goes.
We do not have the Enterprise's level of computers available to us currently, unfortunately, since we're stuck in the 21st century.
Though, considering some of the things that go on in this episode, you might be surprised.
Yeah.
We managed to get locked out of engineering anyway. So, you can see we've got a schedule now, so first of all, trivia. Yes. First of all, this episode is really similar to one of the first episodes of the original series called The Naked Time. It even references that episode within this episode by alluding that it's the same thing that's happening, but it's not.
Yeah, only slightly different.
Yes.
Jonathan Frakes has described this episode as his least favorite, interestingly enough.
Which is a surprise considering some of his opinions about some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Rick Berman maintains that this is a homage, not a copy. We even mentioned the old Enterprise and its remedy, which doesn't help our crew after all.
Although, that being said, you can probably understand why they decided to start off the series with something that's like so similar to a original series episode. To sort of draw connections between the between the original series and the new crew to sort of, I guess, get people interested in them.
Yes, that may have been a good idea, but perhaps one where they're all drunk may not have been the best idea.
Yeah, I think that doesn't really display the characters to their full extent.
Exactly.
No, it's probably best not to have the first actual episode of your new show showing the characters all behaving in an abnormal manner.
Yeah. Usually you want to establish what the characters are likely to do, not what they do when they have their judgment heavily impaired.
Yes.
I think this might be one of the reasons why Next Generation didn't quite pair off so fast.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe back then it was widely regarded as a poor sequel, at least until the third season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gets like way, way better as time goes on. But
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, other trivia. So, sets and props. If you ever saw the shot of main engineering, and by the way, you should really have watched this episode before coming to watch this video, but that big table in the middle of engineering isn't there.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know, it just feels wrong.
And I mean, the engineers that they have in there don't really show up later when they're in engineering, so it's kind of strange.
Yes, so lots of people didn't like this. So looking at reception, part of the wiki, yeah, not a very popular episodes. George Takei, the original series cast member, said in his autobiography that he thought this episode was a total copy of one of the best original series episodes, that it was unoriginal, and it was like seeing young children putting on their parents' clothes and trying to act like grown-ups.
That is a very good analogy.
Cool. So anyone have anything to say on the subject of trivia?
Other than what's been said already, not really.
Okay.
Seems you have covered that pretty well.
And remember, we can use this whiteboard for whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Right, so next, metaphors and themes.
Oh, wait, I just remembered something. The quote-unquote disease illness thing is called polywater. Observe my amazing computer drawing skills.
Fantastic. Okay. Metaphors, political themes at play here. Ugh.
Not really much, really, honestly.
No.
Seems like it was pretty much just a weird anomaly kind of episode.
Yes.
Well, it's not really a theme, but as for something that reoccurs a lot, this is the first time that Wesley saves the Enterprise.
That's more in characters, though, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of both of them. It's an on-occurring thing that happens.
Yeah, but I mean, he did also endanger the Enterprise initially, so it kind of defeats that point.
Yes, there is that.
Okay, let's move on from this section, because this is definitely not a good episode to talk about that regarding. So, on to characters. Probably the most pressing characters here are probably Wesley Crusher and Data.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Yar as well. And
I guess Riker in a way, because it was strange. So, in this episode, relatively early on, Riker touches Deanna and has that whole, transference thing that happens. That little sound effect. And then it's only later, when he touches somebody else, that he says, oh no, I can't afford to have this. And so, did he just not notice, or did it not affect him until he suddenly realized that he probably has it? Because he was operating, completely fine up until that point.
It's kind of like when cartoon characters run off of cliffs, and they don't realize that they're going to fall until they look down.
Yeah. Except, even after he realized it, he still was able to, actually function, unlike every single other person.
yeah.
Just kind of strange.
Guess he can just hold his liquor.
Very strange. Yeah, Data's a bit strange in this episode, because it feels like the original plan of the scriptwriters was to try and set Data up as an annoying, pretentious jerk who gets on everyone's nerves.
Yeah.
If this episode's anything to go by. He, especially considering that sequence of how he says, oh, I'm already listed in many biomechanical textbooks in order to show off, which I guess shows his non-humanness. Also, interesting thing I'd like to point out is when he corrects Riker on the away mission.
Yes.
Riker says, hey, looks like everyone was sucked out. And Data corrects him, he says, no, that's blown out. Right?
Yeah. You can't use contractions.
He can't use contractions. He did a couple of times in this episode, I noticed.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they just hadn't established that rule yet. Although, to be fair, they must have planned out, up till Data lore. So, how did they miss that?
I'm not entirely sure.
So, any other characters? Wesley, does anyone have anything to say about Wesley other than the fact that he completely endangered the ship and then managed to sort of save it?
Get credit for saving it at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
And then everyone ignored the fact that he was largely responsible for their problem in the first place.
Yes. I mean, what kind of... I know he's supposed to be a super genius and all, but taking over an entire starship with basically a microphone and an MP3 player. I mean, seriously.
The fact that he was able to control the entirety of the ship from engineering, not even parts of the ship that should be only accessed by engineering. He was able to control everything from there. It's just... And then nobody could do anything about it other than just messing around with a circuit board to cut the power.
What happened to all those security codes that the captain's supposed to have in order to be able to lock out bridge controls? And even then, he should be able to override his own restrictions as long as he hasn't deadlocked it from engineering.
Yeah. And, and you see later how ridiculous these codes are. I remember in a later episode, Data, sort of spoilers, but Data hijacks the Enterprise for a moment, and it involves it. And in order to do that, he needs to have a code which is so long that nobody could ever have possibly memorized it. So how could Wesley Crusher, a teenager who has very little contact with the captain at all, have possibly known that code?
I think actually that code that he put in was in order to lock anyone else out.
Yes, but even still, a code.
Yeah.
It still must be of something of that magnitude in order to lock everyone else out of the system.
Yeah, so first you need a recordings of his access codes in the first place. Plus you need to know his access codes. And then you need to assemble another new lockout code from things you've recorded that you've heard him say, which sort of limits your options.
Unless you hear him say all of the possible words that make up this code.
Yeah, which seems unlikely if the regular thing that comes across the intercom is so-and-so report to the bridge. Especially seeing as this is the third episode and they've only been up in space with the captain on board for days? Weeks?
Probably. Yeah, not that long.
About the captain's voice thing. Mm-hmm. How Wesley described it was he recorded things that Picard was saying over the intercom. The only issue with piecing together things that someone says is that it wouldn't sound very fluid, at least as fluid as it did, because when people speak, their vocal ranges kind of change depending on words. It's not really... You can't just go into it's not like going to a magazine and then cutting out letters and pasting it together. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But of course, this is the 24th century, so...
I was like, to be fair, Wesley did home make a tractor beam, so I don't really think that modulating voices to sound fluid is the largest problem that he encountered in this episode.
No, but still, I mean, it's the flagship of the Federation. It shouldn't be that vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you can already tell how much the producers of the show like Wesley Crusher's character and want to build him up into something, unfortunately.
Well, what they wanted to do with Wesley Crusher was basically make him like an icon for a younger demographic, so that it's not just, adults watching the show, it's for teenagers that are geniuses or think that they're geniuses and want to and see a little bit of themselves in Wesley Crusher, and that was the whole point. So right. They wanted to basically make him out to be the hero. So in a way, it's like making the viewers seem like think that they are similar to him.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my thoughts exactly.
All right. So, any other characters you'd like to go over particularly?
Did we go over Yar?
No, we didn't.
Yar kind of went over this little backstory of hers in this episode,
which is kind of irrelevant.
That never really gets touched upon again. Yeah.
Briefly, I mean, the real problem with her character is that it's virtually non-existent. And I've said this before many times in the videos which have gone missing, but she just doesn't seem to have any character or enough distinguishing features. And it's through no fault of the actor. Or sorry?
Like, it seems like the way she's written and the way that everybody reacts to her is literally just like, oh, she is a woman who is the head of security. That is the entire description of her character.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and that's through no fault of the actors or...
Yeah. It's just the way that it was written for some reason.
Just completely uninteresting, and no wonder she left before the end of the first season. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, she kind of dies. Just like, Dumbledore.
Spoilers. God.
You jerk.
Okay, you know what? Dumbledore's dies is so much... It's just so popular, it's kind of like it's almost a meme that I think everyone knows Dumbledore dies by this point.
Look, there's lots of people, Pyro, who live under rocks and have never heard that Dumbledore actually dies. So, for all of them, you've just lost their viewership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last character I'd like to talk about, if we could get back to Star Trek, please. Beverly Crusher. I mean, you're just going to let him get up and walk when he's obviously got some illness. Not only do you suddenly deduce that this thing is transmitted by touch, which turns out to be correct, you let him get up and walk around the ship. I mean, come on.
And she didn't even need to, bind him down or anything. Literally, all that she needed to do was take off his visor and he couldn't go anywhere. Because it's not like he can walk, because he's actually blind. He cannot see without his visor attached. And so you can so if you take off his visor, then he is just trapped wherever he is, basically.
Well, that is a little bit cruel, don't you think?
Yeah, but it's a disease that could wipe out the entire ship, right? So some restraints are perfectly justified here. Even a containment field to stop you from infecting other people. Nobody's going to complain about that.
To be honest, I'm not really sure why their medbay doesn't already have special containment devices in it.
You'd think with the amount of alien diseases they encounter, they would have some sort of quarantine safety procedure.
Yeah.
Well, they do. When that kid gets poisoned, he gets put inside that bubbly thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or even, rubber gloves. If everybody had just worn rubber gloves this entire episode, nobody would have been infected.
Yeah. The only reason it got out of control was sheer stupidity and negligence.
Basically, yes. Although, to be fair, the disease does in fact cause stupidity and negligence.
That's fair enough. Even so.
Yeah. But still, they should have already had procedures to deal with this. Anyway, suppose that we've talked about Yar, then.
Yeah. So continuity, we already talked about Data's use of contractions. Yeah, although literature, or for a long time in companion books to the series, they referred to the original USS Enterprise's Constitution class, this was actually the very first episode in any series that actually used it in dialogue, thus making it canon for the very first time.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes.
We even already discussed this episode, and that just didn't come up. Interesting.
Yeah, and the original thing is when it's being shown on the display in the episode, it says on its Constitution class, but the picture for it is the Constitution class refit, or the refit configuration, right?
Yeah, so the... wasn't that actually the second Enterprise that was the refit?
Yes. And it was a completely different class of starship.
The one in the original series was a Constitution class NCC 1701. The one in the movies, which was the refit, was NCC 701A, which was a Constitution refit.
Or at least the latter movies before the first one got blown up.
Spoilers.
And actually in the Blu-ray version of this episode, they changed the refit configuration picture on the screen. They corrected it to the original model of the ship. So...
That's good.
I have the DVDs, so I don't have that luxury.
Oh well.
Yeah. And this is apparently only one of 3 episodes where Picard is seen occupying the first officer's chair instead of his usual command chair.
Well, I guess that he was kind of emotionally impaired.
Yeah. So that's about it for continuity.
Other than, of course, referencing the previous events in the original series.
Yes. Right, okay. Technology. Not much to say about this one.
I guess that there's Wesley Crusher's, of course, voice modulator and his handheld tractor beam. I guess that counts as technology.
Could you imagine how many other times in the series that a handheld phaser-sized tractor beam would be so useful?
Come to think of it, Wesley could have just, sold that and made so much money.
The problem is that they don't have money in Star Trek.
Still, if every Starfleet officer had a handheld tractor beam for moving things around at a distance, how useful would that be?
Yeah. Or, like, especially if it can also be used as, like, a repulsor beam. That would, like, you can just make impenetrable force fields anywhere. That would be so useful.
It would be incredibly useful.
Come to think of it, if they had, like, even if they were, like, fighting, the Borg, they could just make an impenetrable force field in front of them and there's nothing they could do about it. Because, like, you can't adapt to a force field.
No.
So...
Why not, is the question. Also another piece of technology would be useful, would be, I don't know, a way to hack into another Federation starship's bridge camera so that you can diagnose why they've all died without getting on board and getting infected with the disease, which they actually use in the later seasons, so why they're being so stupidly negligent now, even before they're infected with the disease. Okay, so general thoughts and scoring. Anyone have any general thoughts?
On the episode as a whole?
I didn't enjoy this episode.
Yeah. I think that there was probably... There's definitely been better Next Generation episodes to come.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, scores out of 10 then. Political themes. I'm voting for a 0 here.
Yeah, there's pretty much...
There was no
political themes whatsoever.
Okay.
Pretty much anarchy here.
Yeah. Acting quality. 4? 3? I guess there was some acting because they all had to act like they didn't usually, so...
Yeah.
That reminds me. There was at one point, when they turn away from each other, I think it was Picard and... Who was it? Picard and someone else. Whatever. They turn away, and then you just see a look on Patrick Stewart's face. It's just this little smirk as he turns away. You know that he's having a good time acting this drunkenness out. So maybe it didn't quite show as well, but at least you know that the actors are having fun.
Or that could also just have been acting.
Yeah.
There's that too. He is a pretty good actor.
Because he is, an actor.
Yeah.
So what should you think? 6, 7 for acting?
Let's say 5, I guess.
I'd give it a 6.
5. I'm fine with 5. Okay. Technobabble.
There's tractor beam. I'd say about 2.
And then, there was also all that stuff about the random control chips, which is pretty arbitrary.
Isolinear chips.
Control trips up. There's the power stuff.
And then Wesley's whole pseudo explanation of how he can reroute the power in the tractor beam to save the Enterprise at the end.
3 then?
Sure, let's give it a 3.
Compare it to some...
Yeah, to some other weird explanations.
Yeah, if we give the best technobabble in the entire series a 10, I don't think this thing deserves more than a 3. Plot.
Yeah. Plot.
Not much of a plot here.
There was actually...
They got drunk, then they got undrunk.
It did have a lot of flaws with their methodology, and they were passing quite a bit of an idiot ball around.
Yeah, so... What do you think then? 3 maybe?
3?
Sure, let's go with 3 then.
Okay, sounds good to me. And now, just in terms of pure awesomeness, how good was this series?
Well, not this series, but this episode.
Or this episode.
Not that good, in general. Didn't really think so.
I give it a 2.
2? Wow. This is high drawn opinions. We do really love this series, by the way, guys.
Yeah, like, just to clarify that.
That is why I'm giving this one a 2, because I know that there are 10s out there.
And, because the next few episodes at the beginning weren't as good as you may come to see in our commentaries.
Yeah, so that adds up to a total of an impressive 13.
Yes. 13 entire points.
So that would give us a shuttlecraft. Woo!
Yeah, shuttlecraft.
No.
Demonstrate,
That would give us a constitution class.
Oh, really? Well,
oh,
that's
really?
surprising.
Oh, so it does.
If I can actually... this thing is getting really annoying. Bring to friends.
Keep in mind, this scoring system is completely arbitrary and should not actually be taken seriously whatsoever.
Yeah, so I think we can officially declare Constitution class. 13 out of 50. Receiving a certified Star Trek Rewind score of 26%.
Which, I mean, if this is school, is a pretty bad failure.
Yeah, you lose.
Alright, I think that wraps things up for this episode. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye.